Father, no one in this room imagined gathering on this day to remember this life at this time. But here we are. And we're asking you to come now by your grace and through the power of your Spirit and provide to each one what is needed. We want to look back and celebrate Nicholas Abbott Cohen's life. We want to celebrate every single day and every single memory. And we want to bring to you our broken hearts. So come by your Spirit. We ask it in Christ's name. Amen. Well, good morning, everybody. My name's Eric Simpson. I have the privilege of being Nick's pastor for the last several years, and it was one of those joyful relationships as a pastor. Nick was one of those young men who kept the pastor busy, as they say, with his wonderful questions and stimulating conversations, and we had a lot of good chats. I had the honor of doing Nick and Adria's premarital counseling. Adria, I'll always treasure those conversations that we had. And there were the sessions that I had planned, and then there were the sessions that Nick had planned. You guys know how that, like at the end of our talk, and then he had some things he wanted to cover. But we're here today to remember an amazing man. He was a husband, a father, a son, a grandson, a brother, an uncle, and friend. And to help us do that, a number of folks are coming over these next several minutes. Chandler's going to begin because appropriate, I think. Chandler and Nick shared such a special relationship. It's as if they were truly blood brothers. And so Chandler's going to begin a whole sequence of folks who are coming. And each one coming is to represent kind of a different window into the way Nick's life impacted and touched so many other lives. And so they're going to share some memories and some stories. So this whole section is kind of a walk down family and friends reflection.
Usually they save the best for last, but I'll be going first today. So, everyone, my name is Chandler Hendren, and I'm one of Nick's friends. I've known Nick for a long time. We met right before kindergarten and have been getting into trouble together ever since. I wanted to read a poem that I thought was appropriate, but of course every poem I found was sad and depressing, and I think we all had plenty of that for the last few days, so instead I turned to one of my favorite childhood poets, Shel Silverstein, who has for a long time made me smile even though I thought it impossible. But like Nick, Shel Silverstein does a good job of being playful and funny, but can be a bit inappropriate at times, so I think Nick would appreciate a poem written by another jokester like him. It's a little short, but this poem is titled Happy Ending. It goes, there are no happy endings. Endings are the saddest part. So just give me a happy middle and a very happy start. I think this poem is quite appropriate because today is not a happy ending. However, we are here to celebrate and remember a happy middle in Nick's life. And for those of us who knew Nick when he was young, we got to experience that very happy start to the beginning of his journey. So in honor of that happy start, I wanted to share a quick story about Nick and I when we were young. Partly because I think it encompassed our long friendship and who he was as a person, but also because I know it embarrassed the hell out of him and he can't stop me from doing it. So when Nick and I were about Eli's age, we took a trip with our parents down to Hilton Head Island for vacation. Now, being strapping and well-behaved young gentlemen, we had never used or even thought of using any foul language or curse words in any way, shape, or form. However, that fruit did hang mighty low on the tree of temptation. We had heard such intolerable words used before in different references, such as when we secretly watched an R-rated movie or when our moms got together and were talking about our dads. However, Nick and I never dared to actually use those words ourselves. We had heard the stories of fellow 10-year-old comrades getting their mouths washed out with soap, so we didn't dare cross that line. However, as we all know, temptation lurks around every corner, and for us, that corner came in the form of a dirty truck stop bathroom on Route 74, somewhere between Kentucky and Tennessee. We were traveling with just our moms that day, and since Nick and I were at the permissible age to use the men's restroom without supervision, we saw our opportunity and took it. I remember to this day, Nick and I were in that single-stall bathroom cursing up a storm. We were firing off left and right using all the classics. I'm sure a few of us here know them, but I won't repeat any. But Nick and I definitely added a whole bunch more to George Carlin's famous list of words you can't say on TV. We
So
were
after
living
our
on the
miniature
edge
Richard Pryor
to
impression,
the
we
passerby.
came
I'm sure we
strolling out
sounded
of
like
that
a
restaurant
Tourette's kid having no
confidence knowing
stroke.
we had just gotten away with murder.
God, we were 11.
No one could have
been
been
the
the
wiser that Nick and I had just uttered about 50 swear words in 30 seconds without even stopping to take a breath. Unbeknownst to us, Laura and my mom were in the ladies' room right next door listening to the entire tirade of F-bombs and swear words being dropped. So when we came walking out with our heads held high and confidence dripping from our pores, it lasted for about 10 seconds before we found out what that gas station soap tastes like. And that we better not ever do that again. But as I remember it, it was still one hell of a trip. I'd like to say one last thing before I finish. We all know the most important people in Nick's life were his family and friends, especially his 2 young boys, Eli and Asher. I can't say I know what your dad would want me to tell you today, but I think there's something that he would want you to hear that he would have said to you himself if you were still alive. It's a quote from The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The character Christopher Robin is talking to his friend about being apart from one another. He says, "If ever there is tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is ever if we're apart, I'll always be with you." Thank you.
I'm Lauren, Nick's sister. I received this poem from my aunt when our dad passed, and then I read this poem at her funeral, and I'm going to try to make it through Nick's funeral. Nick would seriously be making fun of me right now because I'm crying, and he always made fun of me when I would cry. He would mock me, but I'm going to try my best. It's called When Tomorrow Starts Without Me. When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not here to see if the sun should rise and find your eyes are filled with tears for me. I so wish much you wouldn't cry the way you did today while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me as much as I love you, and each time you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand that an angel came and called my name and took me by the hand. And he said my place was ready in heaven far above, and that I'd have to leave behind all those I dearly love. But when I walked through the heaven's gates, I felt so much at home when God looked down and smiled at me from his great golden throne. He said, "This is eternity, and all I have promised you. Today your life on earth is past, but here it starts new. I promise no tomorrow, for today will always last. And since each day is the same way, there's no longing for the past. So when tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart, for every time you think of me, I'm right here in your heart." Thank you.
This is Brian, and Nick was my first ever friend, my best friend. So I'm sorry if this is a little bit informal. It's more of a letter directed to him. He'd started out by saying, "Hey man, I know you wouldn't want a bunch of us sitting around crying. You'd probably just make some obscene joke, roll your eyes, and move on to some rant about what Jimmy is doing wrong with the Colts. I have too many great stories to tell your loved ones, but I know that they each have many of their own as well, which speaks tremendous volumes of the impact you single-handedly had on each and every one of us here today. My meeting of you is always different than your mother's, who to this day still insists that I knocked on your front door and asked, 'You got kids?' Laura, if it weren't for the fact that you smile and laugh every time that you get to tell people that story, I would concede to your version. But I see Nick in you when I do, so I will continue to deny it. I'll never forget playing cops and cops because neither of us wanted to be the bad guys. I'll never forget Army crawling past your mom and dad's open bedroom door in the middle of the night to get to the kitchen unnoticed, just so we could eat bologna and ketchup sandwiches. So gross. I'll never forget how you gave me the best childhood a friend could ever have. And I'm really happy we stayed friends throughout the years in our lives. Even though I moved away, we kept in touch and it was as if we never lost our spot. I've never told anyone this before, but every time I use my grill for breakfast, I think of your dad. I'll never forget waking up from many of our sleepovers of him making all of us breakfast. Please say hi to him for me. I have grown up to the point where I like beer, so tell him that his tactic of you take one sip, you have to drink the whole thing only worked for a little while. And as you know, my wife, Lindsay, absolutely hates my mower, but not a single cut goes by where I think, damn, those are some nice stripes. But then I laugh because I know you'd have some obscure critique about it. Like how you could tell I didn't grease the bearing on the left deck wheel. I was really blessed and fortunate to be able to spend all that time in the truck with you during high school and college. And I will never forget it. Thank you for being such a big part of life, and I love you.
For those that don't know me, I'm Steve Cohen. In our group, there's a lot of cousins, and for my siblings and their mates, Nick was our nephew. Adria, Eli, Asher, Ashman, Laura, and Ryan, and the lovely Lauren. There's no right words. There's no magical words. Hopefully today you're hearing some words of comfort. That's the best we can do. We all love Nick. We all like Nick. And I think that's the reason for so much emotion in this room and for these last few days. Sure, there's some happiness and joy. We hear stories and see the pictures and think of our favorite memories of Nick. There's some confusion, maybe even a little anger. Mostly there's just sadness. We feel pretty sad today. Nick was a smart guy, bright kid. You already heard he's inquisitive, asked lots of questions, wanted to make things better, wanted to make his mark in the world. So much potential. He had other attributes that helped along the way. As you all know, he had a smile that could light up a room. And he had a laugh that started out somewhere below his kneecaps. And it just started moving up his legs, and then his belly would start quivering. And pretty soon that exploded on his face in emotion and sound. It was contagious. Again, so much potential. Unfortunately, some of that potential won't be fulfilled and won't be realized. And that in part makes me sad. Nick was really good about staying in touch. Hey, Uncle Steve, what's going on? That's the way the phone conversation started almost every time. Okay? We talked about business and work, what went well, what didn't go well, what needed to be improved. He had ideas. He always pushed the envelope. Sometimes we debated some of those issues. Did I mention that Nick could be a little stubborn at times? We talked about family. He loved his family, all his family. We talked about them a lot. And occasionally we even talked about the Cohen football pool, smackdown betting pool, okay? Did I tell you Nick was a little competitive? Okay? That boy loved to trash talk, okay? Ask any of these guys, Corey, Brian, anybody play golf with him. Boy loved to trash talk. But there was always a conversation that we always got around to before the phone call was over. And it was golf. And I know talking about golf sounds a little trivial given the situation here today. But golf was kind of the glue that got Nick and my relationship going. And it was kind of cement that made it stronger and stronger as we moved through the years. It was a common bond between us. And I remember the first time I saw Nick swing a golf club. And I think it was about 13. We're up at Hartford City in a charity golf event. And Nick wasn't even there to play golf. He was just along for the ride. Because he didn't play golf. But sure enough, one of the guys didn't show, and hey, Nick, you want to fill in? Who cares? It's a kid. okay, he can't do this. And then he stepped up on the tee and I saw him swing. And I'm going to tell you, I've been playing golf forever. I went, whoa. Because for somebody that didn't play golf, that swing was smooth, it was fluid, and it was effortless. I was duly impressed. And over time, some golf camps, some lessons, and lots of practice, he honed those skills, got better and better. He could hit his driver a long ways. Now, he didn't always know exactly where it was going to go, but he hit it a long ways. His irons hit him so high, that they didn't always land on the green either, but when they did, to steal a line from a CBS golf commentator, they landed like a butterfly with 2 sore feet. It was impressive. Something like that. It was some skills I could only admire and even envy. Okay. But again, so much potential. It's going to fall short of being totally fulfilled or realized. And again, that makes me sad. We all have our favorite memories of Nick. You've heard lots of them today, and you'll hear lots more today, I'm sure. But the image that will be forever in my brain will be that 13-year-old light-headed kid with the big smile and the natural swing. Nick, I'm going to miss you, and I'm sure we're all going to miss him. I thank you.
Good morning. My name's Tom. Good friend with Nick, next door neighbor for a few years. Had a dream last night about Nick. He's up in heaven, and everybody that knows Nick a little bit realized that he liked to place a bet or two. So the over/under for me to cry here was 3 minutes and 14 seconds. So I think he took the under. So Nick's mom asked me to speak today. I originally turned her down because I didn't think I could get through it, and so I won't. But I'm going to anyway, so without crying. So we lived on the cul-de-sac. My heart is warm that the next guy that's going to speak behind me moved into our house, and he became close friends with Nick too. So that's something that I'll never forget. That's important that Nick had 2 good friends that got to live next to him in the last 5 or 6 years of his life. So we played golf together. We were in a 2-man league together. We actually won that. I don't know how. Probably because Nick was a good golfer, and he knew how to scheme the system when it comes to handicaps. So, he taught me well how to just miss that putt because it doesn't matter. So you want to keep your handicap up. So, okay, whatever you say, Nick. So he'd probably be upset with me if I didn't tell a joke anyway. So Moses, Jesus, and this old man are going golfing. And they're tied after the 17th hole. And Moses goes first, and the 18th hole is a par 3 with water in the front. It's not a very long hole. And Moses gets up there and he hits it right in the water. He says, I'll play through, I'll finish out. So he walks up to the water, he parts it, he walks to the ball, hits the ball up on the green, and walks up there and puts it in for a par 3. Jesus gets up there. So he hits his in the water. So he walks up to the water, walks on the water, commands the ball to rise to the top of the water, and he proceeds to hit the ball into the cup for a 2. The old man's last, so he gets up there. He hits a horrible shot. There's a tree that's over the green. It goes stuck up in the tree. A bird comes out of nowhere and knocks the ball out of the tree onto the green. A squirrel comes out of nowhere and proceeds to nudge it all the way into the hole for a hole in one. And Moses looks at Jesus and says, I hate it when your dad plays. When I think about Nick, I think about Dree and I think about Eli. Because whenever I talked to him, it was Dree, Eli, all the time. Conversation, whatever it was, it had to do about Dree or Eli, constantly. And my wife and I moved before Asher was born, so I'm sure it would have been the same thing. Ash. So I liked his uncle's name, Ashman, so that was pretty cool. So, my dad was a locomotive engineer, and I'm fond of railroad track stuff. I look at the railroad. We've all been on a railroad track, and we look down the tracks, and we see the rails get closer and closer the further and further away they get from us, to the point where they look like they've come to an end. But as we get older, we realize as adults, those tracks go on further. That's an optical illusion. It's the same thing with Nick. We saw him go, and then the tracks ended, but we know Nick is on the other side of the tracks when we get there. So keep that in mind. So Nick and I talked about Jesus a few times. He assured me that he had accepted Jesus Christ as his personal Savior. So I feel comfort knowing that he's waiting for me when I get there. So I don't know why they call it a goodbye, because it's not good. So I'm just going to say, see you later, Nick. We'll be playing golf one of these days. So.
My name's Jack Ramsey. Nick and I were close friends. Chandler, Brian, we were all having a lot of fun as kids. I've been trying to think of just one memory that stands out to me with Nick, and it's been tough because obviously there's a ton of them. Everything's been amazing, hilarious. We've had a lot of fun times, and I was lucky enough to share that with him and also the Cohen family. I met Nick in, I think it was the 4th grade. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. The entire school was sitting in Lincoln Elementary, and my buddy Ben Hessian was sitting in front of me with Nick. They were talking and laughing, and Ben liked to talk a lot back then. And so Nick asked Ben if he wanted to come to his birthday party, and Ben, like a good friend to me, said something along the lines of, "Yeah, man, can Jack come too?" And Nick turned to me and said, "Yeah, do you want to come?" And of course I said yes, and a friendship had sparked. I'm pretty sure at his birthday party we played football in the backyard. We snuck out of the house to go TPing. I'm pretty sure that Lauren probably drove us to make sure we were safe. We probably stayed up really late at night to catch a glimpse of one of those late night HBO Cinemax shows. You know, the late night ones. Thank God the Cohens had TiVo. The last time I talked to Nick was last week on Monday. I hadn't talked to him in a little while, but he answered, and it felt like always just a friendship. He said something about Eli playing basketball, and when Nick and I were young, I was a bit taller and faster and could jump a lot higher than he could. And whether we were playing at my house or his house, I would stuff a lot of his shots. But when we started playing rec ball in Brownsburg, he learned that he could use the referees to his advantage. So if I was guarding him and stuffed a shot, he would smack his own arm, make a sound, and fall to the ground. You would call that a flop. The ref would blow his whistle and call a foul on me. Nick had found a loophole in the system. And when he told me about Eli playing ball, I asked, "Well, are you going to teach him how to flop like his old man?" Every conversation I had with Nick, he was always positive, even if things were rough. He always held a positivity to him. I appreciate everything he has taught me, his friendship, his kindness. He is a part of who I am today. He will always be family. His family will always be family. He loved all of us dearly, and we will always love him dearly. I love you, Nick, and thank you for the wonderful memories.
I'm sensing a trend because I walked in with my iPad and they asked me if I was the priest. And I could only imagine what Nick's commentary to that would have been. First, I'm just feeling so blessed to be able to say a few words about Nick. So he came into my life when I became his neighbor, and I moved in right at the eve of the pandemic, right when so many things were being taken. And it was such a blessing to have Nick in my life. I mean, we spent hours and hours just conversing about nothing and everything. And he was a huge blessing that came in right around that time. And as I was thinking about what did Nick mean to me, the first thing that came up was he was a neighbor. And wasn't just a neighbor to me, he was a neighbor to all of us. And he took so much pride being from this city, being from Indianapolis. He loved the Colts, loved the city, loved being a part of the community. And he really embodied to me what the best part about being from the Midwest is that you can have these really personable, meaningful conversations with the people you share the space with. He had such a knack for looking you in the eye, giving you the time and the space and showing your value through meaningful conversation. Nothing exemplifies this more to me. I lived in the same neighborhood about 3 years, and we probably had 10 houses that were sold and new people moved in. And I'd usually give him about 5 or 7 days and then go up to him and say, "So are you best friends with the new neighbor yet?" And he'd follow up and he'd kind of get a little bashful, you know, how he'd just kind of like dodge it. And then he'd dive in and say, "Oh yeah, that's Joe," and tell me his whole life story, why he moved, who he was, his whole family tree. I mean, I don't know how he got so much depth in just one conversation. And then at the end of it, he'd pause, and he'd pause, and he'd pause. He'd kind of lean close to me and do that big grin and say, "I got a new client. I'm mowing his lawn on Tuesday." I was always so jealous of that smile he had, because when I give that smile, people get nervous and think I'm up to something. When he glanced, that smile is like a get out of jail free card. I mean, he could say the most inappropriate joke, I mean, he had some of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard, but could get away with it with that smile of his. And all you could do is just kind of shrug your shoulders and say, "Man, I freaking love that guy." The second thing Nick was to me was a teammate. We, similar to some others, bonded over golf. And I realized almost immediately that our styles were completely different. I'm this nice zen, calm, cool, collected, roll with the punches. He'd like to strut onto the tee box, hit a 300-yard drive, flick off his opponents, and walk off like he owned the place. And what was so fun was that our styles were so different, and over time we learned to balance each other out. You know, he gave me the confidence to be intentional, be aggressive. I helped him, I think, understand that going pedal to the metal the whole time, there's some downsides to that. And my most cherished memory was this past golf season. I was going through a divorce, he had lost his job. We were going through some tough times and used that Monday as an escape. You know, we were able to be in nature, just compete, just pure friendship. And I know for certain that maybe not during the golf, as you heard, he was a little bit all over the place, but definitely after the rounds, we just would kind of slowly drift off the course and have really, sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't. But I know for certain Nick had peace in those moments, and I'm really proud to share those with him, and I feel fully confident he's got that peace now. The final piece is that Nick was a genuine friend to me. I have this quote that says, "Don't make friends who are comfortable to be with. Make friends who will force you to lever yourself up." And that's what Nick did to me. He challenged me, and he's still challenging me. We had so many intimate and deep conversations where we were vulnerable with each other. I would share my anxieties and my worries, and before I could even finish my last sentence, he'd jump in with positivity. He had this optimism and belief in me that sometimes I couldn't really quite find for myself. And that's what's so heartbreaking. I think the belief he inspired in others was what he couldn't quite find in himself. And there's a key lesson in that for me. The burdens we place on ourselves are always the heaviest. And I'm going to continue to strive to give myself grace, not be so hard on myself. To understand that I'm not my emotions, my fears, my anxieties, possessions, bank account, all these things that we grip onto. That's not us. We're the sum of the connections and love we have with each other. And Nick knew that. Nick inspired me to learn that. And I'm going to continue to carry that on with me as we go.
Hi, I'm Michael Abbott. I am Nick's uncle. And I'm going to be the voice for some people who asked me to speak their words today. So that's my job. And the first person I'm going to be speaking on behalf of is Alicia Lane Williams, who was Nick's first love. And she writes, "Nicholas was my best friend and first love. He claimed we knew each other better than we knew ourselves. And considering the time it took me to figure out just who I was without him, I guess he was right. He loved to be right. I'm certain many of you can imagine right now that smirk and twinkle in his eye when he was. He was often bold and unapologetic. I'd like to remind you all of a certain group referred to as the Roadkill Bandits. He was ambitious, prideful, confident, sometimes too confident. Not only could he do whatever he set his mind to, he could make you believe it too. He worked hard, played hard, and loved hard. The next piece is from Adria, Nick's beloved wife. I've been comforted with the words that I was the best thing that ever happened to Nicholas Cohen, but I tell you that Nicholas Cohen was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I am a significant number of years older than him, we helped each other grow as individuals and as a couple in so many different ways. We balanced each other out with our parenting methods and even with our ways in managing the household. Nick was an amazing cook, like his dad. Took care of the kitchen and everything outside. I had laundry and bathrooms. While we had the normal issues of many couples, we also just worked really well together. Nick was the number 3 member of the Al Jr. trio, as my mom called us. He was just as much of a stubborn, argumentative, smack-talking, if you left an opening, he was coming right on in, brutally honest a-hole as my dad. And I, LOL. But he was the kind of a-hole that you just had to love and laugh at and could not stay mad at. Nick was really good at teaching you something new without feeling like you were learning. He watched the news every night when we got home and settled, so we all stayed on top of what was happening in the world. I loved the practical and philosophical conversations he and I would have about every different imaginable subject. When he was in the zone, I often imagined he sounded just like the Wabash man he was trained to be. By making me listen to certain songs and pay attention to the words, he taught me to really enjoy country music. I'm not there yet. We spent weekends, many weekends, during the pandemic, driving the country roads and listening to country music. We spent weekends doing the same thing and running errands as a family, although Nick was also content with just sitting in the car with Ash sleeping while I got some uninterrupted time in the stores or even at a play. He was the most amazing father to our boys. They both admire him so much. He played basketball, Nerf guns, Legos, Xbox. He'd go sledding down our hill, carrying each of them in his lap. He'd bounce a giggling Asher on his leg, read books to him, teaching him new words. I'm truly going to miss hearing Eli say, "Daddy's home," and hearing Ash yell, "Dad," when they open the back door. Last, I want to thank everyone so much for all the love and support that we've been receiving since Nick's passing. It has helped me feel some peace, knowing there are so many people that truly loved and appreciated ever knowing him. I just pray he knew it too. From Mom, I don't even know where to begin. You were my firstborn, the little man at birth who made me grow up. We spent so much time together those first 5 years before a brother came along. And I remembered vividly so many things from those years. When Ryan came along at age 5, you proudly exclaimed, "It's a brother, and he's a keeper." And then at age 8, when Lauren came along, your sentiments weren't quite the same. And since she was a girl, you joked and exclaimed, "We could throw her in the trash." You were thrust into manhood at the age of 16, and I so appreciated everything you tried to carry. You certainly were a rock during that time, while all the fighting your own battles. I pray I didn't lean on you too much. You excelled in high school, graduating in the top 25 of your class, and went on to attend Wabash College, all of which I was extremely proud. As some of you may or may not know, you hit the wall during your junior year at Wabash. But with help from all who loved you, strength and determination from yourself, you pulled it together and proudly finished that 5th year, all the while jokingly telling me that that was your victory lap. I can tell you, because I know, that only about 20% of students who leave college before they finish ever come back to finish. Eli was born in 2012, shortly after graduation, and I was so proud of the way you embraced fatherhood at a fairly young age. You never shirked your duties as a dad, even after being thrust into single fatherhood before his age of 1. Closed doors only opened new doors, and the opportunity to meet Adria, who you spent the best 7.5 years of your life with. Little Asher was born during COVID, and oh, how I wish I could have been around more, but it bonded you to your little family, and seeing you with him and hearing your goofy Asher voice will be dearly missed. Eli and the rest of us will carry on your memories for him. Not once was I ever not proud of you, even when you made your share of mistakes. I was touched and honored. We had a relationship where we shared truths that we weren't proud of and had disappointments which were forgiven in both directions. Your love for us was unconditional, and you showed us so much like your dad how protective you were of all of us. You brought so much laughter to everyone you knew. You could always make me laugh, which got you into a lot less trouble at times. You could also show me your genuine heart and emotional support when I needed it. You were generous with your time and gift giving. You always had words of wisdom and would bring clarity to me in a way that I could come to peace. You were always there for your brother and sister, even when you were totally pissed off. I love you and thank you so much for that. You always took great solace in songs and lyrics and would have me listen to so many of them, especially after your dad was gone. The lyrics of Tim McGraw always resonated to you, and today we'll play a song at the close of the ceremony that you always loved. But for me, you loved the song Walk Like a Man. And from time to time you'd write in a card or a note lyrics which I will forever hold in my heart. They go, God gave boys their mamas because they always see their promise, and they help them understand, and they help them walk like a man. My promise to you today, Nick, is that I will carry on remembering and preserving memories for Eli and Asher of the boy, the teen, and the man. And I will always make them see their promise and teach them to walk like a man for their dad, Nicholas Abbott Cohen. We will forever miss your humor, your goofy face-making ability, your day-by-day prayer from the movie Meet the Parents, your chubby little hands, your crooked little smile, and all the joy you brought of just being you. Lastly, I just want everyone to remember you for the way you lived and not the way you died. I know in my heart of hearts, if you could take it back, you would. But we will take it from here. We will live our lives, ensuring there's a better way. I know you're looking down on us and will always be with us. I love you to the moon and back. My dear son, carry on. So, I wrote a little piece for Nick